Welcome to ANBOUND webinar. I'm Wang Yi. I'm head of Global Development Program of ANBOUND. In this episode, we'll talk about the Belt and Road Initiative, as well as related policy issues most concerned by the world. Today, I'm pleased to be here with 4 think tank scholars. Thank you for joining me. Dr. Rafiq Dosni is Director of RAND Center of Asia Pacific Policy. He's a senior economist at RAND Corporation and a professor at RAND Party Graduate School. Dr. Dosni works on education, finance, regional development, security, trade, and technology issues. Dr. Jennifer BRI is a senior policy researcher and a Tong Chair in China Policy Studies at RAND Corporation. As an epidemiologist, she's focused on global health strategies and social determinants of health. And also, she is well-trained in clinical medicine and quantitative method. Professor Yungjun Chen is from the Business School of Renmin University of China. He's also Vice President for Institute of China's Economy Reform and Development. Tony Pan from ANBOUND, he's a research fellow of ANBOUND. His interest focuses on international relations. Also, he's close working with our chief researcher, Mr. Chen Gong. Okay, the first speaker is from Rafiq. Could you please share with us what's RAND's opinion about the Belt and Road? Especially, I know you completed the latest report about Belt and Road. So what's the report? What's your findings? Please share with us. It's your time.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me to join, and I'm happy to give you some perspective on the Belt and Road Initiative from my point of view. I should point out that RAND is an independent objective research organization, so it doesn't have a point of view in that sense. It's up to us, like in a university setting, to do our own analysis and draw our own conclusions. So, and what I'm going to talk to you about is a little bit of work that we've been doing over the last 2 years, looking at the BRI. And the objective of that research, with Jennifer, I, and PhD student at RAND are co-authors. The objective of that research was to try and really demystify the Belt and Road Initiative. In fact, even when we were searching for the name of our report, it was Jennifer's idea. She said there's a lack of clarity about the BRI, and that should be the title. And because there's a lot of confusion in the United States and many countries outside China. I travel frequently all over Asia for my work, not recently because of COVID, but otherwise. And even across Asia, there's a lot of confusion. For example, I attended the Raisina Dialogue in India in January. And that's foreign ministers and foreign secretaries and gathering in India that takes place once a year. It's chaired by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I met so many country representatives from there who didn't have a clear idea of what the BRI is. So I said, let's bring out what it is. And it may be different from how it is portrayed, either by the media here or by policymakers here or by media and policymakers in China itself. So we did our research and we concluded that there were 4 distinctive characteristics of the BRI. One is that it concerns connectivity, particularly global connectivity with China as a hub. Now that has, many advantages and also some issues that it raises that we should discuss, and we discussed them in our research. Second, it's focused on infrastructure, not at a local scale, but at a national scale, and scales that transform countries. The world is very short of infrastructure funds, even though the world is full of capital. It's awash with capital, but only developed countries can access that capital. From a developing country point of view, there's a huge shortage of funds. China is making available some of the funds that are needed. It doesn't fulfill the whole gap, but it's transformative, for a country, for example, like Pakistan, which has never gotten foreign aid more than $1.5 billion a year. And that's usually includes a lot of military aid. So if you look at development aid, it's even less than that. The BRI will be giving Pakistan about $62 billion in investment, at least. That's just the capital, fixed capital. There'll be working capital on top of that over a period of 10 or 12 years, which is much larger. So that's the second difference. The third is it's comprehensive. So it's not that the BRI is focusing only on building bridges or transport systems. It includes energy, local area development needs, and other perspectives. So it's comprehensive and helps attain development. And finally, it is state financed and state implemented. When I say state financed, that's not uncommon. Most development aid, whether it's from Japan or USA, is state financed. It's somewhat unusual for a still not rich country like China to be giving out such large amounts of aid, but that too is state financed. But implementation by the state is not common. Most development initiatives from rich countries are implemented by the private sector, mostly from that country which gives the aid. So it's all tied to the country. But here we have an initiative that is largely state financed and state implemented. So from that base of findings, we then came to many conclusions about the BRI in terms of its advantages, its disadvantages, the issues that should be discussed. I'm happy to go into that now or later if you like. Please let me know.
Thank you, Rafiq. We got some basic ideas of RAND about Belt and Road. And Jennifer, would you like to share with us your experience and your opinion about BRI, especially during the pandemic of coronavirus, how to do collaboration with each other? Please, it's your time.
Well, I think, I joined RAND about a year ago, and the RAND research led by Dr. Dasani has been ongoing for 2 years. So I really just joined the team. I also think that our report really is the essence, and it's a result of multiple years of study. I think, when I joined RAND and trying to conduct some research on BRI, the challenge that we encountered are tremendous. First of all, it seems to us that it's very difficult to find a consistent platform to find data. So most of our research are based on white papers, policy papers, and news reports. So as you can see, we try to be objective and also set up a framework, not only talking about the goal, the characteristics of the BRI, but also to counter some of the very popular criticisms of BRI. So in this report, we provided sort of analysis of 8 top criticisms or questions about BRI. So we call it externalities of the BRI. So the idea is that no one's really questioning that the world need BRI, but lots of people are wondering, what is the motivation of China, bringing up BRI, and what are the other impact of the BRI projects into the world, in addition to the infrastructure building. So we listed those 8 main areas of criticisms in the report, and for each one of them, we did some research. Unfortunately, I wish we have more data as evidence to show whether this is a depth trap trap, or whether this really focused on the how much benefit China has versus the partner country, or when we talk about the SDG goals, do we have a qualitative data to show what are the gaps here? So right now in this report, we really just listed some of our qualitative synthesis of impressions to counter these questions. But hopefully, I think in the future, if we could get more data, either on the international platform or from Chinese government or companies, that will help us to strengthen analysis like this. Well, in terms of COVID-19, certainly the first 6 months of this year, every country has been focused on fighting this unprecedented pandemic in the modern era. China has in January, certainly in January and February, most of the attention of the world is focused on China. But once China contained the virus in mid-February and going down the peak, and then in March, we see that Europe and US quickly catch up. And in April, the US has been leading the top disease burden of the world. So I suspect that under this environment, that most of the country will focus their efforts in fighting the pandemic. What I've seen is that it seems that BRI project has been either paused or stopped for now due to the travel bans, due to the labor mobility issues, as well as the supplies. Some of the supplies and global supply chain has been stopped, so that may cause some trouble. And then also financially, when every country is, most of the countries are facing this downturn in economic perspective, then there's a lot of concern about signing new projects. So I know there are lots of contracts that has been in the negotiation that has been paused. And then we also see some countries start to think about renegotiated loans, or think about refinance the loans. So there might be inevitably, there will be some refinance activities. So I think in a nutshell, that's what we have seen, how COVID-19 have impact on the BRI. But I want to also point out that some of the countries, especially in Asia, when the COVID-19 is already contained, we already see that BRI project already restarted in Indonesia, in Sri Lanka. Those are already working. And in addition to this traditional BRI project, I heard that Chinese President Xi Jinping has mentioned to strengthen the healthy Silk Road, the health Silk Road, as well as the digital Silk Road. I think these are reasonable refocus of BRI during the pandemic. Certainly health is important, health assistant is important, and digital, as we have seen now that we're using the remote conference. So I think digital infrastructure is important. So I think, those are the new nuance that brought by COVID-19 to BRI projects. So that's my view on it.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer. And Tony, could you please give us some point of ANBOUND Belt and research outcomes?
Okay. Okay. So first, sound check. Can you guys hear me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, well, my name is Tony Pan, and I'm in charge. Well, kind of in charge of ANBOUND's BRI research. I'm sure all of you have read that report. So gaming, it's a little bit complicated from our perspective to explain it. So I'm going to take you skiing for several minutes. So this is a small thing I prepare for better explain our point. So our research about the BRI, we named it the formation, development, and the most important integration of the BRI. So it mainly contains two parts. So first is what happened before the formation of the BRI, and then the next part is the actual development and the integration of the BRI. We heard a lot about the actual development, but I think the integration of the BRI, that's the original point here. So let's dive in. And so the formation of BRI, because of ANBOUND's unique position in Chinese policymaking process, so we probably has a no more than average people or average scholars. So we believe that the formation of BRI actually can date back to the golden age of Chinese economy, which is from 2000 and 2010. And during that time, during that time, this is a fast-growing period of Chinese economy, and until the Great Recession in 2008, international trade is the most significant factor for Chinese growing economy. If you want to, expand the horizon, the international trade, which is globalization, industrialization, and urbanization, that's the three main drivers of Chinese economy. But during this time period, the international trade is the most important one. But as you can see, there is some problem with this development model. So, the fast forward to 2010, there is some problems left in the Chinese economy structure or economy model. The main problem is that the old driver is not as strong as euro. So to cope with this potential problem, or you can say it's crisis, but we ultimately did a lot of research on the New Silk Road initiative, which is launched by the Obama administration, except it's not really launched. It's only just to never go beyond the concept or idea. I think that's probably because there is also a problem of the resources for US government. So, but after our research, we believe that such a similar idea of the New Silk Road, namely a Chinese version of New Silk Road, could help Beijing to mitigate its relationship with Washington, because it really suits the desire of the Obama administration, because ANBOUND actually was invited to doing research about the New Silk Road initiative, and try to convince the Chinese policymakers to really join this global initiative. And that didn't happen, right? So we all know that. But from that, we believe a Chinese version of New Silk Road initiative could help Beijing to find new marketplaces and basically solve the economic problem left from the golden age, and do some benefits on the geopolitical point of view. But through our channels on the this proposal finally have some impact to the Chinese to the launch of the BRI. But I want to point out one thing is that I'm now saying that the BRI was completely from ANBOUND, because it's not true, right? So we did not mention the maritime Silk Road. So from there, you can see that there is an expansion from our original proposal to the BRI as we saw it. So that's, maybe you can say that's a beginning of the degradation, but maybe we can discuss this later in the later section. But in terms of the actual development of BRI, I have three things to argue The first thing is that China has made a great accomplishment in its infrastructure building. I think we can all agree on that. The second thing is that there is a clear degradation can be observed in the actual development of the BRI. Namely, we define degradation by the implementation of the BRI is not really coherent with its original purpose. Like I said, further boosting Chinese economy, solving the problem from the golden age, and create a better geopolitical environment. So then the question goes to why the degradation, right? So let's start from here. So I think we can all agree on this. China had made a great accomplishment in infrastructure. It has built a massive multi-dimensional transportation network across the Eurasia continent, and a lot of things like energy, like the telecommunication, basically you name it, whatever you can think in the infrastructure domain, China has been building along the continent. I think that's a great accomplishment, not only for China, for the Eurasia as a whole, even for the world as a whole, because the infrastructure, well, it will have its value in the end, right, eventually. Next thing is that there is a clear degradation. Well, there's 3 direct sign of the degradation. Well, there's 2, I'm sorry. So the first is imbalance between the resources distribution between the road and the belt, namely the 21st Maritime Silk Road took too much attention. I cannot say it's intentionally or unintentionally, but that's a result. Second thing is that I think it's clear for most observers that the BRI has evolved into a model of the SOEs, a state-owned enterprises, and plus infrastructure. We name it I+I model, and well, that shouldn't be the only or the biggest part of the BRI, but it is right now. So the problem of the degradation, right? So first, it failed to mitigate the relationship between China and the US, because US is the most dominant maritime power in the world. If China want to become another maritime power, I think eventually they will clash, right? So the second thing is that it failed to solve the domestic imbalance of the regional development, because the Maritime Silk Road project was dominated or led by the eastern coastal provinces, and they are strong, economically strong, and because of the imbalance between the belt and the road, the western less development province, they didn't really blend in or join this process. The third thing is that I+I model has made the BRI increasingly unsustainable. That's where the depth problem comes in. Well, we talk a lot about like China is trying to using the BRI to set others up. I can't agree that completely, because I don't think the Chinese company are happy with the depth problem as well, right? Because they are losing money as well. So even if they took for say the Sri Lanka's port, the port still is not profitable. So that's a problem for them. Last thing is that the I+I model does not really solve the problem left from golden age, like the overcapacity. Rather, it really made them even worse. So I think we are all, after all I said, we should, well, we probably really care about why the degradation, right? So I think the direct reason is that the inconsistency between the policy making and the policy implementation of China. That's the very direct reason. But in the deeper level, I think there are like 3 main reasons of this. The first is the nature of the BRI. The BRI is too big and too innovative. Well, maybe many people saying it's a Chinese version of Marshall Plan, but I think it's different than Marshall Plan, because in Marshall Plan, the Western Europe, they are already, they are already developed. What they need is just money, but that's not happening in the BRI. Next thing is that the structural reason inside the Chinese government. First, the Chinese government is too big, and there is an institutional conflict of interest. And next thing is the special status of the SOEs. I will explain this a little bit more because many people can understand that the SOEs are not just an economic unit. It's a political unit and an economic unit. And that dual identity gave them a lot of leverage that others cannot compete with. Next, the last thing is the Chinese mindset in the external activities. For a lot of time, Chinese diplomats or Chinese government officials think that the business is just business, right? So that used to work, but it didn't work right now, because if you build something in somewhere and it causes like environmental problem, that is not a business concern, but it will eventually affect your business. Well, the last reason of the degradation is the interaction between nations along the BRI. This is quite easy to understand because BRI involves different nations, and China can not really control how other nations react, and there is a difference in their interest, and sometimes their different interests could jeopardize the original purpose of the BRI. I think that's the general picture of our research towarding the BRI, but well, we can definitely talk more in later sessions, but that's it. And I will give you screen back to you guys. Yeah.
And Professor Chen, I know you also conduct BRI research for a long time. And in 2016, when you visited London, you also have a public speech to investors in UK. At that time, we know you mentioned the initiative is first of all a business model. So could you explain your opinion about BRI, and please?
Give my PPT how to do. I'm very glad to be invited to attending this international conference symposium. I will give up some comment for this report from the ANBOUND and RAND. First, I think these two research reports have raised the prevalence for all the reasons and the put-forward suggestion of the BRI. They are the consistent political framework and perfect policy system. They have three common points of the two reports. First, in affirming the achievement of the 6 years of the construction of the BRI, the prevalence are quite old. Second, the reason for this prevalence expand for establish the political framework. That on the basis of this suggestion for improvement of put forward. Also have a difference between the two reports. Also have 3 points. First, the proportion affirmation of the criticism are different. I think ANBOUND report criticizes more. The RAND is affirms is more. Second, the analytic framework used different. ANBOUND used the OPTT track development theory. RAND used the full characteristic analysis theory. These policy recommendation seem to be different. ANBOUND looks said make a bigger adjustment. RAND suggestion is fine-tuning. Generally speaking, the two reports out of these are static reports and establish their own logical framework analysis the future direction of the construction of a BRI, just like the last year's World Bank Economic Report on BRI. This is the World Bank report cover. These two reports, I think, is the international impact research reports and have point at the solid level. This is as a brief comments for these two reports. Also, use this chance introduce a methodologic model of BRI. I think the win-win is the core content in the BRI. This is very important, and we can give the supply and demand analysis. China, how can do supply? Have a three. First is the product capacity, high level, and hygiene volume exchange. Other countries, population countries in Asia, they are needed the money for their infrastructure condition. So supply and demand can match up. This was very important and the core the BRI operation can carry out. So the main investor sector in the BRI in this railway, gas power plant, telecom, seaports, etc. We also can give a case study. China invested US dollars 10 billion in the other Asia country that can use China product capacity and 4E. Other countries use China this for their infrastructure construction. Then after this project finished, return back the money to the China. This get a win-to-win. I think this can use this case study. Now, so we have a cycle. First, we have after the compilation intends, then for the construction, three receivers from the project, then giving the back the drawings after the project. So we can, for this first China with the Asia country, for this get the win-to-win. Now, after 2013, China leader with the Asia leader have the closer contacts from this model garden. Other, the European and country also can join this plan because they are high level technology and the user, the construction project, they can get the benefit from the plan. This is 2015. Railway lane from China to European. Finally, the North America also can cooperation join this plan, the Canada and America, because they have the innovation can join the project, get the benefit. This is a RAND marketing project, the BRI in railway in Kenya from Nairobi to the Mombasa. I talk just talk 1 minute. I just comment the two reports have the common point and the difference. But I think it is a very high level report. Give me can more study for the BRI feature. My model of the BRI just introduced is that the BRI have the economic logic, have a core, just the supply to the demand can match up. This is very important. This plan can be carried out, can be done, just have this core. Otherwise, the BRI is a deal, is a business, is economic plan. This is the main point. So how to do this? The first mosque exam should be done in the future if we create the gold environment for this model to operation and charge the scale investment and strengthen the management and according and project the BRI will get more better. This is the main opinion. Thanks.